What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Artists Like Us, new podcast. And we are on episode 2. And today we have a very special guest here, amazing guitar player, instrumentalist, and artist, of course, Michael Paik. Is that how you pronounce it?
Actually, Paik.
Paik, Michael
Yes.
Paik. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. Of course. You know, it's funny. The first time I think we met was the junior high gig.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was one that I think Grace helped put that one together. It's funny. I was saying in the last episode that I didn't know that she engineered all of these. You know, it's like the Truman Show. Like, I'm just in it, you know, but I didn't know that she engineered all these, put all these together. And I was just like, okay, the junior high show. And I was like, first I thought it was like a junior high school. It's like I never knew what the gig was, right? As far as like, where are we performing junior? Okay, and then I ended up meeting you, and then you were in a different band at that time. And I remember you playing. You guys were covering Human Nature, and you were just killing it on that. And that's just like a lot of those guitar tracks that from like Thriller and stuff. Like I always was like mesmerized by it, like growing up. You know, no one really talked about it, of course, but just like hearing you play it, I was just like, wow, he's really doing the song like justice. So like, yeah,
Oh, man.
yeah. So that was kind of like my first thoughts. I was like, man, like. This guy.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So I kind of go to, origin story as far as like how everything came to be. I'll start out with a question that just seems to be just really a good one to start with everything. But do you recall what your first memory of music was, whether it being listening to something or hearing something in the house, or how do you remember your first encounter with music just in general?
Yeah. Thanks for the props on Human Nature.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I gotta say, I kind of ripped off John Mayer on that one a little bit. He has a great rendition of it, and I remember when I was in high school, I totally copied him.
Oh, wow.
And I'll do it with a band, and it's always so much fun. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, music. I mean, my dad is also a guitarist, not professional, but he fiddles and has a great ear, and he loves music so much. So I remember growing up, he would just always have an acoustic guitar around the house. He would be, showing my cousins, how to play. I remember as a little kid, I would see him, showing my cousins and playing songs for my mom and stuff. So I always just was like kind of like the guitar, man. That's a cool looking thing.
Yeah.
As a kid, I'm like looking at it, I'm seeing like the frets and the dots on the frets and the wood. I'm just like, I kind of want to get into that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my I guess just like my inspiration for wanting to get into it just came pretty early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Did your dad have like a record collection or anything like that? As far as they listen to certain music in the house, or?
Yeah, you know what? We were never like big record vinyl people. Really.
Oh, okay.
It was mostly actually like when we were in the car. Like I would be like doing long drives with my dad, and he'd be like, oh, like check out this AC/DC or check out this Michael Jackson record. And then I think when I was, when phones and YouTube became a thing, it would be a thing where I would sit, I would sit shotgun and I had my phone, and this was like before Spotify. I would just play songs from YouTube.
Oh, wow.
I would play stuff. And if my dad was like, yo, that was tight, I'd be like, yeah, I'd feel a little bit of pressure to like put on something cool. Yeah. And I felt like I was refining my taste. And sometimes he'd be like, hey, why don't you put on this one? Or he'd be like, why don't you check out SRV? Like look up SRV, look up, he actually got me into John Mayer.
Oh, wow.
Strange enough.
Really? Wow.
He's just always been such a fan of music,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I know he's going to watch this too. So he's going to be like, oh, that's my son, But yeah, just like taste being cultivated in the car with him,
Yeah.
that was a big part of it. And then like, I think when I was around 11 or 12, him and my mom like kind of got into church.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, really started getting involved in the church community. And so somehow my dad, being a music guy, he was like, you know what? I think I could help out with the worship team.
Cool.
And so sort of in a way of nepotism, he kind of brought me into the church band, and I was playing bass. I was playing bass in the church band. I was like 12, playing with the kids. We had like a church band or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends who I played with in that band as kids, they're still like my closest friends.
Oh, wow.
There's a guy, I remember there's some kids who are older than us. And one of them, this guy named Noah Yu, he's doing great now. He has a band called Cafune, and they had a big song called Tech It. It like blew up on TikTok. And, and we were playing in the church band way back when, and he was killing it back then too on the bass.
Oh, wow.
So that I would say that was kind of the genesis. No pun intended.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, it seems like, I mean, it's really cool. It sounds like your dad had a really like just great ear for like tunes and whatnot, as far as like, hey, check this out, you know. It's funny, it's always weird to think that YouTube came first before Spotify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I read that, was all of that in Virginia growing up, or where as far as like going to the church, playing music, like where were we at that time?
Yeah, that was all in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Northern Virginia, Chantilly, Chantilly, South Riding area to be specific.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what that is. It's nothing going on there. Really. It's just a family-friendly suburb, you know, in Northern Virginia.
Wow.
But yeah, that was pretty much where I was at from like birth to 18 until I went to college.
Wow. Wow. So when did you decide like, hey, like I want to go to LA? Like when did that happen for you?
I would say, well, I moved here in 2022.
Okay.
So pretty recent, I would say. And I think I was, I had visited in 2019, before COVID, and I just thought it was such a cool city. Yeah. You know, I was staying with a friend in his studio apartment. He let me stay for a week. You know? Wow. And at the time I was like, of course, you know, like, yeah, I'm in town, I'm staying with him for a week, and now I'm like, oh gosh, that's a huge favor. Right. Shout out to you, Donald. I love you. You know, and he still lives out here and stuff, but yeah, like hosting someone in LA for a week, it's like it's a big deal. That's a service of love. Yeah.
He really cared about you.
He really did. He really did, and he still does. Yeah, but yeah. So I visited, and I thought it was really cool. And being from the East Coast, I took a lot of trips to New York. Okay. You know, and just checking out a lot of the jazz clubs in Manhattan. You know. Pretty much only the jazz clubs, sadly. Really? I wish I explored more. Yeah. You know, I'm sure there's so much more to the scene. But
was there a connection to jazz you had, or from your dad, or what do you think it was about jazz that like was like, yeah, I want to keep seeing live performances of this?
Yeah, well, I studied jazz in college. Oh, okay. You know, so that was my major, and so I think a lot of people who study jazz in school, especially, they feel like they need to have that continued education afterwards. So I remember after I graduated, I really felt like, oh, I need to like check out the best jazz clubs and always like be hearing the best players and stuff. And so for a long time, I was going to these small clubs, checking out guitar players like Adam Rogers, Jonathan Kreisberg.
He's a monster. Yeah.
He's a beast. You know, I would see him probably, you know, once a month. I would make a trip just to hear him play at this place called Bar Lanterna, I think.
In New York?
In New York. Wow. Yeah, and I was just blown away and everything. And so around 20 21-ish, I kind of decided, well, I want to go to either New York or I want to go to LA. And so I took 2 expensive trips. I stayed in New York for about 10 days and I stayed in LA for around the same amount of time. And I remember I went to every jazz club. I went to a bunch of music things in New York, and I was just like, yeah, it's cool. I get in my brain that it's high level music, but it didn't really speak to me.
Really?
You know? And I remember when I went to LA, I went to a show at the Hotel Cafe, and it was like an album release party for this artist named Alex Pacino, who I don't know him personally that well, but I have a lot of friends who know him, and a friend of mine, Brian McShay, told me, hey, you should really come check out this show. And I think it was like this guy named Brian Jones was playing bass, who's now the guitarist for Paramore.
Oh, wow.
You know? Wow. And then I think there was the person who was on guitar, I forget her name, but I think she was like the guitarist for Katy Perry, and I've seen all of them now, like in all the Coachella videos and everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went to that show and I heard the whole album live, you know, and all original music, just singer-songwriter. And I left that night. It was such a good show, and I was like, I'm gonna move to LA. I decided like there, I was like, this is like where I need to be. It's just like a scene of like new artists making like original music, singer-songwriter, pop, but like in a way that felt refreshing. Yeah. You know? And I was like, you know what, I need to be here. Yeah. So that's kind of why I moved, you know, for that reason. Yeah.
Interesting. So I wanted to talk a little bit as far as your experience with going to school for studying jazz. Like I always find like that's like just I have such like an appreciation for like people that like go into that, because I know that's not an easy task. And then obviously like I can't imagine like the competition space as far as like other people that are like have those kind of chops, you know. Like what was your experience like going to jazz school and studying jazz? Were you studying like a guitar for jazz, or were you using it, were you playing a different instrument when you were in school for studying jazz? Or
yeah, it was pure guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, jazz guitar. Yeah. I studied with a guy named Dave Stryker.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's been doing this organ trio thing, and I wonder if he might watch this. So,
oh man, I hope so.
I gotta speak really good of him.
Dave, hit me up.
For real. Amazing guitarist, truly. He just has a sound that is very unique, but it also is rooted in, you know, the blues. He's deeply inspired by Pat Martino and George Benson, so he has that lineage in his playing, and he's also been on tour and played with brother Jack McDuff, the organ player. Wow. I think he told me that he played with Jimmy Smith for a while, and he was Stanley Turrentine's last guitarist as well. Whoa. Yeah, so you can check out some videos of him. I think it's in the 80s, and he has a mullet. Sorry, Dave. And he's just crushing it with him, and now he has like just Dave Stryker. I think it's his organ trio stuff, and it's just so crushing. So I got to study with him for 4 years. Wow. And I was pretty green when I came into college. I mean, I was a big John Mayer, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, jazz-ish, you know? And so he really, you know, he was like, he'd always be like, you know, I really like that you have the blues in you, and that is you, but we're going to add a little bit of language and jazz to it. So he really, you know, took my playing to what it is now, you know, just having a little bit more of a beboppy, jazzy kind of flavor, especially in my soloing and stuff. but yeah, I thought he was super inspiring because he was a great teacher and professor, but he was like during the summers or whenever he wasn't teaching, he would be like opening for Steely Dan and like playing, like doing the thing for real. You know. So it was a great experience. You know, I learned so much.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really neat because I've taught, like, one of my good friends, who's also, you know, really talented guitar player, but he had a teacher, a guitar teacher, and his experience was really like just like negative. I guess just the guy just had all, it was almost like whiplash with guitar. Like just like really, really negative experience, and just like, you know, and it's kind of like a love-hate relationship with the instrument, you know. So it's good to see the opposite, or just like, oh, you know, just like, yeah, just you know, done 4 years, and you know, I didn't want to kill myself, and you know, like it was a great time, you know. So that's great. That's great.
Right, and there were, of course, there's always, you know,
pressure moments,
the negative pressure moments where, you know, there were days when I was walking home and I was like, man, I'm a piece of crap. I really feel like doo-doo, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like a box of hair, you know. And you know, because it's hard, man, because a lot of musicians, especially young ones, you know, impressionable 18-year-olds or whatever, they base a lot of their self-esteem and self-worth in their playing and their art, you know. I don't know why I did this. In their so-called art, you know. Whatever this is. But yeah, so you know, sometimes you walk home and be like, oh man, I sounded like crap, or that person is so much better than me. Like, why do I suck? You know. And there, you know, it's just ups and downs, but and I think a lot of, you know, the post jazz majors, they carry that baggage, you know, around a little bit. But you know, it's in the past.
Yeah.
And you can't change it.
Right.
So you just gotta, I'm here today, and that happened, and you try to look at it from the most positive way you can. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. I think that's such a powerful thing too, man, because I've talked to people who they were Berklee students, right? And then they had such like, just like going to like one of the most like prestigious like music schools or whatever, and then like you're playing bars, like late night bars afterwards, you're like, what is going on with my life? You know what I mean? So like having that positive like notion as far as just like, one, having people who are like, man, like that guy's killing, but not letting it like cut into your brain as far as like, what, like, how am I gonna get to that? You know, just kind of like really focusing on yourself and being positive. Like that's like, that can't be said enough. You know what I mean? Like especially in LA. So I commend you for that.
Yeah, it's and I think it was. You want to get to the dark stuff now?
I'm riding shotgun, so wherever you want to take me.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's. I think it's a journey, and I feel like I'm at such a good place now that I can talk about it and be like, yeah, that was dark, but I feel like now it's been so positive, especially as of late, that I'm like, that happened for a reason. Yeah. Or those things.
There's a purpose.
But yeah, I think when I graduated in 2018, I still was like a lot of, you know, the people, they, oh man, I really feel like trash about this, and felt like there was such a gap in skill. Yeah. You know, so I went home. I went to school in Indiana, and I went home to Virginia. I was like, Indiana, love you. I'm out of here. Right. You know, I went back to Virginia, and I really practiced at home. Just like everything I like kind of absorbed in school. Yeah. And I just kind of like practiced, and especially when COVID came around, I was like really being methodical. I was reading like a lot of books. Like I read this book called The War of Art. I read this book called Daily Rituals, which is like just a daily routine of like writers, painters, composers, artists, you know, and just try to like really like lock in. Like I was
That's great. Wow.
I was in the hyperbolic time chamber. You know, for
Yeah.
real. I was really locking in. And so that time, especially when COVID came around, like that time until like 2022, I really was just locked in practicing. I was reading a lot of books, you know, the Miles Davis autobiography.
Oh, awesome.
You know, I was reading that, learning about just like the life of an artist. I think that's so important. And so, yeah, I felt like my chops were good. I was gigging a little bit in DC too.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to LA, you know, I'm still like, it's not like I can play like, you know, most, like there's some cats in LA, you've seen them. It's like,
it's
oh
like,
my gosh.
holy cow, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it's just like building that sort of like, you know what? I like where I'm at, and I'm still growing, but having like confidence and realizing that it's like not really, it doesn't have to be about like how good I am.
Sure.
It can be about expression, being true to who you are, and just kind of embracing the moment.
Yeah.
You know, in music.
Yeah.
Yes. So, and once you get to that place, which is, it's not every day, of course, but you can find a lot of joy. I found a lot of joy in music, you know, just like really like loving myself, loving like my community and everything. So yeah,
I think there's a lot to be said as far as like playing in the moment, you know. I always think of the Pixar movie Soul.
Oh my, I love that movie.
Right?
Yes.
I love the movie too, you know, and it's just that it touched on so many really important like parts as far as like being an artist and like being able to play and like not where you're like just like focusing on every like chord change or whatever, where you're really just like expressing yourself and just kind of having like be in that space. And I just like completely resonated with that watching that, you know, and I try to get to that moment place too, where it's just like I'm just ascertaining everything musically around me and playing with the music, you know, and not thinking about, oh, did I mess up or whatever, you know. So it's just an important thing, you know, that I think a lot of, at least maybe people that are like newer to that, like getting to that point is so like really important.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? When did you decide like wanting to kind of like being like, as far as like, hey, like I'm gonna write music like under like my artist name and like do my thing? Like when did that happen for you, and like kind of like why did you take that direction?
Yeah, I've always been a lover of songs.
Yeah.
You know, John Mayer is obviously a fantastic guitarist, but also just a great writer of lyrics.
Yeah.
You know, his songs, like, man, sometimes I listen, I'm like, I hate this guy.
It's like, it's so good.
It's so
incredibly talented. Yeah.
The writing, the layers of instruments, but then also like the words take me somewhere. Whether it's like on a visual sensory level or it's like, oh, you said something, you know. Phoebe Bridgers, you know, her songs just like take me places, you know. And I've always really loved, you know, artists who, you know, whether it's like Lizzie McAlpine, Bob Dylan, Leith Ross is one of my favorite artists. Just like acoustic guitar, voice, words. I've always like really wanted that sort of song. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so I kind of like, for a while I was kind of passively releasing things. You know, I would make a beat and then I would show my friends or someone who I was dating, you know, and just, hey, what do you think of this? And then you're like, oh, it's cool. Or they'd be like, oh, this is, you know, they bob in their head. I'd be like, oh, wait, maybe this is something. So I started just kind of like really starting with Ableton.
Okay.
Making loops on Ableton and just kind of using like either the Ableton drums or Splice drum one shots and just having the guitar in there, recording bass.
Yeah.
And just having everything like self-made. Real inspired by Tom Misch.
Oh, okay.
Tom Misch, because
Tom Misch is great.
I love it. Have you seen his
I saw some was NPR Tiny Desk or the
Tiny Desk, or I think it's called Rhythm Roulette, or On the Clock.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen that one.
Yeah, there's an episode of On the Clock where he I think it's 10 minutes. He has to make a beat.
Oh wow.
And so he has like a MIDI keyboard like this and just a guitar, and he just makes a beat, you know, in 10 minutes, just like,
oh wow,
you know, in his little home studio. And so I was like, man, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to like make beats, make full production, just, and great songs like in the room. So
really quick, are you a FKJ fan?
Yeah.
My goodness.
FKJ.
Wow.
Yeah. The video with him and Masego.
Yeah, classic video.
So good.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that whole era of artists who were kind of like looping and stuff. I was really inspired by that. So I started making music kind of in that fashion. So I kind of was releasing things passively. I wrote a song called Patterns, and I put that one out. Another song called Finish Line, Love Me Now. Those are all like literally in my bedroom, like loops, microphone. Send it to my friend who's very good at mixing, and he would just have it sounding professional and good.
Yeah.
So that was kind of passively happening, and then my latest release, which I think was April of this year, was a song called Rosaries. And that was the first song that I wanted to make something that I could just immediately perform. So that one's like acoustic guitar and vocals, and I can just play that anytime and like it'll have the same effect. Yeah. And I did that because I realized that the loop stuff, I couldn't always recreate that feeling live. Okay. You know, it felt like a diminished or augmented version, you know, but it wasn't, you know, exactly the same. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So I wrote that song, and come about, I want to say maybe June of this year, I met some people at this company called OGM, Objectively Good Management. And I met one of the founders, his name is Koki, at a Melrose Trading Post. Oh, nice. So I was playing and I met him, and we had some conversations, and a few months later I ended up signing with them. Awesome. Wow. And so Koki's my manager, but another person in the company who really Koki introduced me to her. Her name's Katie. And she's kind of been my like week to week person, you know, and Koki's been like, yeah, Katie's really into your music and she believes in it. And so she flew out to LA, I think in July, and we went to a producer session, and we made some songs with them, and just like having her in the company like really like back me up, you know? Yeah. That really like changed a lot for me, I think. Not that you need a management, but just having them being that backbone of being like, hey, listen, like, we believe in you. Yeah. You know, like, I think you're going to be great. I think your songs are great. And I was like, man, like, I feel like everyone believes in me but me. You know, I was still kind of like, yeah, I'm a guitarist. I'm a gigging guy. I'm not really an artist, but they're really trying to push me into being an artist. And so after some time, it took a while, I just kind of was like, you know, what if I started believing in myself? Yeah. What if I did that? And so I, again, been kind of cognitively tricking my brain into belief. And so that's kind of, I feel like when the whole artist thing really came together, when I really started believing in that. Yeah. And not being shy about it. Yeah. And being passive. Yeah, I would just say like putting out music, making music, having a team like that was a big thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really, really grateful, blessed, and lucky. Truly.
Yeah. Man, you said a lot of stuff there that I resonate with, especially when it's like believing in yourself and being an artist. Like I think of those things too, you know, because it's like I'll have various types of music where it's like some stuff I'm like playing guitar or whatever, and others I'm like rapping and whatnot. And then and then there's certain things where it's just like there's a certain covetousness, you know, you have of your music, and you're like, man, like I wanna present this around spaces that are gonna respect it, you know. It's like I don't want to like just like rap at like a random like Irish bar, you know what I mean? Like I want it to be somewhere where it's like the music is gonna be like kind of resonated more. So just like having, and then also too, it's like not separating those things and like, well, like just take it all in, where it's like you can do multiple things and like you're an artist, you can just do that. It's having that confidence, you know. So I definitely commend you on that, you know, because I feel like a lot of even artists that are kind of making that transition, like it's a serious road to travel, you know. So I think that's pretty awesome, you know, definitely. So
I gotta hear you rap. I want to hear that.
I got Spotify catalog.
Okay, I'm gonna check it out.
Please do.
I'm gonna check it out.
Please do. Another thing you talked about too, which I think is another thing that not every artist can do this too, as far as like one, like being able to ascertain different criticisms when you're sharing your music with somebody. Some people are really sensitive to that, understandably so, right? You know, but I think that's a whole other muscle to work, as far as like, okay, like sometimes I'll like show something to like my wife or whatever, and she'll be like, oh, it's cool, you know, or she'll just have a certain honesty where I was like, oh, well, this kind of sounds weird, you know. And then like one side of my brain's like, what do you mean? Bah, you know, like you're supposed to believe in me. And then the other side is, well, maybe it's just off key, Jarrell, and you need to sing like, you know, like a third down, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like being able to kind of self-criticize myself and like make a certain adjustments. Like I'm so comfortable with that now, even like if I'm like working on a verse or whatever, and I'm like, nah, I can do that better. You know, and then like being able to identify those things, because I had this whole podcast called The Music Buds I did with Preston Bud, which was his podcast. I was a co-host, and we would review music, right? And some of our early episodes were kind of like crazy, because like we're saying jokes and stuff, but we're criticizing this guy's music. And you know, some people would agree on certain songs and some people wouldn't, and I was pretty heavy on critiquing certain things, and I try to always just critique the music, never the person. Like I'm never judging anybody's character, always about the music, right? And then certain artists, they were like messaging presses where I was like, Drew, like, oh, what's up, that guy Jarrell? Like, he didn't like my music, blah, you know. And he's like, bro, like they're like everyone has an opinion, like, you know, and not everyone's gonna like your stuff, you know what I mean? And there are certain things that I did like, and then even like some of his future music is even better, you know. Like I won't say his harsh name, but just as far as the whole notes, as far as like, hey, like, be an artist, make your music. Not everyone will like it, but the importance is that when you're done with it, you have that fulfillment and that satisfaction. Yeah, you know. And I think there's a lot of maturity that has to be there to get to that point. I mean, what would you say in regards to that, as far as like having that, maybe not thick skin, but it's that awareness?
It's hard, man.
Yeah.
Don't trash talk my music. It hurts.
Right.
It hurts.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, like, artists, the songs that we make are so close to us.
Right.
You know, especially the ones that we really put our time and energy into.
Right.
That it can hurt and it will hurt.
Yeah.
But if it does hurt, then that's just because you care,
right?
And that's okay,
right?
But I will also say that, honestly, oh my god, these might be famous last words, but like if someone trash talks my music or is like, oh yeah, I don't like that, I'm not that hurt.
Yeah,
I don't know why. I feel like I'm maybe separated a little bit from it. And I think part of it was, one strategy I did was when I first put out my music, it actually wasn't under my name.
Really? Okay.
I had a artist name.
Okay.
It was called MANIK,
Okay.
with a K at the end, because my Korean name, which is my middle name, is Kinam, right? So I arranged the words backwards, and it spelled out the word manic. And I went, that sounds cool. And so I was like, that's going to be my artist name.
There you go, yeah. And
so then I was like, everything I was making, I was like, oh, that's not a Michael thing. That's a MANIK. MANIK made that. It was separate from me, you know. It was almost like having a company title, you know. It's just like,
right.
It's not who I am. It's just a music thing, you know. So to a certain degree, that kind of helped a little bit in the beginning. And then I changed my name, my artist name, to my given name, because I didn't like going around and telling people that I'm MANIK. It just didn't feel like normal for me, you know. Like, maybe if I had a cooler name, you know, like Lando Chill is such a cool. I'm Lando Chill, you know. Right. Shout out to Lando. Like, that's a pretty cool name. But I'm like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm MANIK.
Right.
And I was like, that didn't feel good off my tongue.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm already introducing I tell people my name is Michael, and I say my name's Michael Paik when I'm on stage. It just makes sense.
Right.
So I changed it to that, you know. But yeah, as far as like having that thick skin about the music and not being hurt, there's no time.
Yeah.
There's no time to worry too much.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I think.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, and speaking of closest to music too, I was thinking about like there's an interesting part of being an artist, I feel like, when you're writing something and it's like very, very personal, you know. Yeah. And you know, there's one artist that I'm a big fan of. He's a rapper, Vinny Paz. Vinny Paz. He's one of the front rappers for Jedi Mind Tricks.
Okay.
And he came out with an album, which I believe it was under Jedi Mind Tricks' name, but one of the songs was called Spilled Milk, and it was about like his dad, you know, and like and stuff. And I had no idea how personal that story was that he told until I listened to a podcast and he talked about it, and he was like in tears talking about it because you know what I mean. So I was just like, whoa, like that it didn't occur to me. And I had one of my albums, Remember Who You Are. I have a song called Elkhart, and it's about my grandfather. My grandfather passed away, and he gave me his saxophone that was like over 50 years old, because I was like, oh, maybe I should go to music school, you know. And I was thinking about it, and like he's never done that. Like, I've never witnessed him give a gift like that, and something that personal. So it just showed like how much he like believed in me, and like that song was probably one of my most personal songs ever, you know. So it's just crazy to like, and it was really hard for me to release that too. Yeah, you know, like it's really hard. And then I let like my grandmother know, you know, as far as like, hey, like and I showed her the song and stuff, and my dad, like his son was like, yeah, like, you know, show her the song, you know, and like she was like in tears. And then it's just interesting to hear like people like, oh yeah, it's my favorite song on the album. You know, and I'm like, oh, cool.
That one fucking slaps,
yeah,
bro.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a banger I wrote.
It's a banger. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's just so weird, you know. It's just so weird, just like how all of the input, the powerful input and the output, and then the response. Yeah. You know, so it's just, yeah, I agree with your sentiment too, as far as like, you know, like there's a saying as far as like your stuff is never as good or as bad as they say. You know, there's always like an equilibrium, you know, so like having that positive mindset, I think is just really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, oh man, that's really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think for myself, part of my protection from that too, is maybe I will one day, but none of my music out right now. Yeah. Or none of the music that I will put out this year, which I will be putting out probably 4 songs.
Nice.
This year.
Awesome.
It's not about anyone, actually. It's like kind of based on feelings that I feel. But I feel like when it comes to the composition and the songwriting, like maybe in the beginning of it, oh, this song is about my ex, you know, I'll write it. Or this song is about a relationship I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I'll look at the words, and the way I think of it is like, okay, this song is for you, girl, or someone, you know, person.
Yeah.
And then the song is for me, you know, because I'm writing it and I'm crafting it. And then it's for like them, which is like the audience, you know? And so I feel like there's sort of a core and a spine for a lot of the songs that I write.
Yeah.
But eventually it actually, I don't have a lot of interest yet about telling my story.
Yeah.
But a story, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, like I'd rather like take someone to a place that has nothing to really do with my life personally, but it is something that will remind someone else, the listener, of a thing or an experience.
Yeah.
So yeah, sometimes my girlfriend will be like, who did you write this song about? And I will truthfully be like, honestly, it's not about anyone.
Right.
You know, it's just like a story.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I don't know.
Man, so as far as this, I guess one of the lasting, you know, things, I know you said you're releasing, you know, you said 3 singles?
3, hopefully 4. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Any I guess anything else that you want to tell your fans as far as like anything you're like any gigs that you're playing soon or anything that you can promote to your fans, and then also where to find you as well, you know, as far as socials and all that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I do have, I'm really excited for those songs that are coming out. I have a song called Gamer Girl that I wrote and produced with a producer named Kobe and his producing partner Kim T. And then I have a song with my friend Ethan Cohen called Out the Window that's going to be out next month, hopefully. I have a song called Sunkissed with a producer out in France named Wesley Scott. And I'm working on a song right now that hopefully is going to be done this year with a bass player in town named Nadav Shapira.
Oh, wow.
Who's like the most like killing bass player, like just so kick-ass. Like the first time I heard him play, I literally went home and started practicing.
Wow.
Because I was so blown away. Then I found out that he's a great producer and engineer too, and I was like,
awesome.
I hate you. But no, Nadav is great. He's such a sweetheart. But yeah, I'm putting out that music with him. As far as shows, I mean, I'm always kind of playing around town.
Cool.
So usually on my Instagram or something, you'll see something come up on a story or post.
Cool.
But yeah, I just really want to share my songs, you know. So please listen to my music. It's just under my name, Michael Paik.
There you go. There you go. Any lasting pieces of advice for newer artists out there?
Oh man,
given your journey and everything, I think it's pretty inspiring. Any type of advice to give to any artist?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I feel like I'm still figuring it out myself. I don't feel like I'm worthy of giving that advice truly, but I would say to just like, you know, write from your heart. You know, try to chase that sound that you really love, like whatever like music that you're really really into, like that really moves you. Do that thing. You know, that's what I would say.
Awesome. Awesome. Michael Paik, I appreciate you doing the show, man.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Truly an honor.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Likewise. Likewise.
Well, you know I like to say no. I bow to what's in my headphones. Chill tonight, lay back to this goes. Set my mind on cruise control. Music revolves around my